Hi and welcome to the Nairobi Film Festival. I'm delighted to be to be introducing this talk this afternoon. We are really happy to be presenting the short films Baraza, as we have named it. And like I can't talk this morning yet, so but we're very proud to be hosting, to be having CK, Carol Kioko, hosting us today, hosting this conversation on our behalf today. She is a super independent producer, super independent and independent producer, and also the founder of the 48-hour film project in Nairobi. I'm sure the title is a bit different from that, but and has been a force basically in the Kenyan film sector for a long time, and really done a great amount of work to help elevate the professional output of this region. And today we're in conversation with a whole community of Kenyan short filmmakers whose films are in our selection for the film festival in this year. And so I'm going to hand over to you, CK. Take the conversation away.
Thank you so much, Shiva. And thanks to everyone for being here. I think it's just really exciting to be part of a festival that has so many Kenyan films. If you've been in the industry as long as I've been, this is like a really big deal. So first, congratulations to all of you for pulling it off. Making a film isn't an easy feat. And so well done. I love each of your movies, and hopefully we can dive into each of them shortly. So my first question to all of you is, what was your experience in making the film? And when I ask about your experience, I don't mean technically, I mean narratively and creatively. How did you arrive at the subject matter that you wanted to deal with? And I'm gonna start with Ivy. So just tell us a little bit about Sungura and what that was like for you coming to that idea.
Hey guys, I'm Ivy, the producer for Sungura. This amazing film written and directed by Lydia Matata. Yeah, so Sungura is about a disabled woman who wants to buy a vibrator from a sex auntie at a bridal shower, but she must confront other women at the party who believe that the fact that she's disabled, she's asexual. Yeah, so she shouldn't be, inquiring about vibrators or knowing things about sex. We had a really interesting, first when Lydia brought to me this film, I was like, this is it. This is different. This is gonna make people talk. And hopefully KFCB is gonna accept us and stuff. So it was a bit nerve-wracking for that bit. But we did have quite a bit of conversations with our friends, with just people we were connected to who are disabled, women who told us their stories, and we used a lot of the people's experiences in the project. Lydia can talk a bit more how exactly she got to write it, because she's a journalist, or she was a journalist, and she was doing a story as well about this woman with a disability as well. And she got, so from that story, that's where she was like, okay, we need to have people talk about sex, talk about inclusivity, right? And even I remember a time we were doing an interview. We were not an interview per se, but like just talking to a friend of ours who's called Shamim, and we were at a restaurant. And when we were there, she was talking to us about her experiences, what she thought about the film. Are we in the right direction? Are we speaking about a woman with a disability in the right light? And there was a man who quite literally walked up to us and and started telling us what he thought about a woman with a disability. He thought about the conversation we were having, and just started staring at us. And we're like, wow, these are experiences that you guys go through all the time. People want to be extra nice. People want to keep touching your aids as well without your permission and stuff. So that was, and it was a light to me as well. There's so much I learned just throughout the research period, to be honest. And I'm so grateful for being able to produce this, for people to watch it. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to be making a film about any minority in Kenya in this day and age, right? Because it's like, which lens are you using? And it's, for me, Lydia, it's really curious that you chose to tell this story. And I wonder, where did it come from? Is it like a personal experience? Was it just an idea? Why was this important for you?
So it was important because like I'm a very sex positive person, and I wanted to buy a vibrator myself. So and I think like when I wanted to, there was already a shame around it. You know, it's not like, I think there's one random shop in Diamond Plaza that doesn't say, oh, hi, we are the vibrator shop, and you have to like buy it online. So why is there so much shame for a woman to seek pleasure? And so the idea actually came from Rebbe, and it was actually Rebbe who we were talking to when that man came over. And it was either Rebbe or another friend of mine called Frida. Yes, actually Frida, because she runs an organization with for women with disabilities, where she talks about their sexual and reproductive health rights. And it was a comment about how, you know, we are sexual as well. Like we aren't non-sexual human beings. And I think it's just that thing of women are sexual and reproductive rights minorities as well. We are minorities in that sense, where either when we speak about women, we are either only allowed to reproduce, we're not allowed sex for pleasure, or people are talking about us in terms of sexual violence. But then there can be someone who is experiencing a larger degree of that. So when she said that, I was like, then there's another group who aren't expected to have sex at all, whether for reproduction, whether for anything. And then also, because I was a journalist, I remember like being in spaces where I would be covering events that are for gender rights, and they would be in these places like the Hilton and the Stanley, and with these big organizations, and I would feel like if a woman who was maybe poorer or from another class came into this room, she wouldn't feel feminist energy. And so it's realizing that sometimes discrimination can be amongst women. It doesn't have to be that you have to have a male presence to have discrimination. And so that's why like wanting it to be couched in a bridal shower, because it's amongst women that you feel safe to talk about your sexual desire and your sexual experiences. But then now to play with that irony that a woman who was a woman like these other characters, except for this one difference, because the main character is same gender as the other characters, same educational background. She knows the bride at the party the same as the other women, but because of her wheelchair, she isn't allowed to participate in the sexual and sensual energy that's happening in the room. Yeah.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned discrimination, because the next question I was going to ask was actually to Nick about Doggeraiser. First, I was just like, that film is too short. It should have been longer. It's Isha's, and I'm like, wait, go back, finish. So I'm just interested why you chose that subject matter and actually how you found that story first.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my name is Nick. And so, yeah, just to answer your question, like it should have been longer. Yeah, I did a longer version of which is 50 minutes, which came out a month ago or something. So yeah, the whole story is this is a group of street guys, street dancers who I met 4 years ago. The guys who used to dance literally outside Tribeca in Mojo's club. So I've been following them for the last 4 years ago until I did a feature of them, which came out a month ago. But as I was in the process of filming these guys, the last couple of years, I was also very much drawn to a specific character, though the feature film has its own definitely characters, but also now this one I was specifically drawn to a specific character who would be able to tell, to paint a picture and tell a story of what it means to be in the street, first of all, and the theme not necessarily homelessness, but ideally it's the theme of home and family. So ideally this is a group of 6 guys who are 6 street dancers who literally share the same common background, past and present lives, because they're still together till today. But now this specific character called Doggeraiser, or ideally is called Dogo, then guys called him Doggeraiser, then just stuck with that. Is this guy who I was exploring the theme of family and home, where this guy demonstrates of how he left home at a very young age, ideally as normally as many other street guys we normally see in the streets, whether they are dancers, whether they are even hawkers, any street person, whether you're selling coffee, you are a hawker, or you're a dancer, or acrobats, or anything. So this guy left home when he was literally a very young age, at ideally say 14 or 15 years old. Literally came into the city for the first time and decided to live in the city and to form a family here in the city, which now ideally the dance group is called the Street Family Dance Group. So most of these guys in the group have, so right now they've been together for the last say 11 to 12 years, which is ideally some, it's even more than how they've lived with their nuclear family. So it literally, this is more of a new family for them. So for Dogoriza, as much as they all have similar stories, Dogoriza's story was very unique compared to the rest, because Dogoriza is this person who, unlike the rest who maybe left because, of a cruel stepmother or a stepdad, or the mom died, or maybe some are orphans, Dogoriza was unique because in the sense of he has both parents. He comes from a quote unquote, from a shag's perspective, a well-off family. And, a well-off family of a family of 5 siblings, whereby 3 siblings are in secondary boarding schools. That kind of a family, that's a well-off family. They have land, they have a house there, they have 4 cows, it's literally a good family. So wondering why this guy came into the city, when he was, right now he's 27 years old, when he was 15 years old, and he's been living in the city and living the street life, whereby as much as he has this new family, the conditions that surround him are definitely very crazy, because there's the conditions of, being homeless in the city. That's not what he expected. Living in Nairobi is, of course, is very crazy. But of course, the other condition of, any day, anytime, you can be arrested and go to prison because of the bylaws that in Kenya, you can't dance at night or anything of the sort. So trying to understand why someone will subject themselves in that situation where they have literally a family where they can go and just live there happily without any circumstances, was what drew me to this story. And this is the story of someone who is trying to figure out where is home and who is home and what is home. Is home literally a building or a house, or is home the people you surround yourself with, or or home, is it just a specific region, that's a home? So this guy has found himself in a situation whereby all these, the 2 major themes which are family and home, have a secondary theme, which is now the cultures and traditions here in let's say in Africa, but ideally in our tribes. So this guy comes from a family where his mother, the mother is the real mother, but the dad he normally lives with is not the real dad. But I've lived with him in their home for quite a long time, and unless he tells you, you can't realize that this is not the real dad, because how they live, it's very, you can't tell, because the other siblings come from this real dad and this other mom. So the thing is, where the mom now is married to with the new dad, he's reached a stage in his life where he starts to look at his future and question, so many things that he's not able to question publicly. So he starts to question something like, if, for example, my dad dies today, who is the guy who owns that land according to the customs and traditions? So the dad is Kalenjin, the mom is Luya. According to the customs and the culture, in that tribe, is everything that is inheritable will literally go to the children or the siblings. But the fact that he is not from this real dad, then it puts him in a situation whereby, he won't inherit anything, he won't get anything if the dad died. So that's the biggest question he asked himself. So, and with that question, now he also kind of questions himself, or kind of answers himself, if that happens and I won't get any inheritance or anything, I don't feel as part of my family, or a part of this family, then I don't have any business also staying here. I'd rather just go and just check out or look out for myself. And that's why this guy decides, at the age of 15 or anything, maybe by that time he was trying to ask himself those questions, but they weren't as specific as it is today. But ideally, that's the question ideally at 13 he had in his mind. So, and he decided to literally travel from Kapsabet. Of course, he used a lot of gimmicks of how he reached Nairobi, met these other 5 boys, and they formed a dance crew, and they called themselves Street Family Dance Crew, of which they've lived for the next 12 or 13 years together. So once in Nairobi, everything is amazing. It's a big city, but he doesn't know, what comes also with living in a city. And it comes with so many troubles, the police here and there, the city council, the poverty and everything. And so with that, he kind of reconsiders, his situation of, do I just go back home where it feels safe and everything? So he's in a position whereby when it gets hot in the city, he goes back home. But also at home, he's not also accepted, because at home people perceive him as a city person, and he also feels he doesn't fit at home, because once he's at home, he feels he's much way forward than the rest. So he doesn't fit anywhere, whether in the city or at home. So he's always, moving here and there. So now it begs the question, where is home, and what is family, and who is family to you? Is it the people who you are born with, or is it the people who you literally live with them daily, or the guys you surround with daily? Who is family? So he like the documentary kind of poses that question. So I think it's just anyone who is watches to kind of rethink who is family and where is home and what is home.
Yeah, and I really like that you also couch it in a very cultural identity and this male identity as well. I feel like there's so many layers which the documentary genre allows for you to do. And Jim, I'm very curious, for someone who's so well known for fiction, I honestly thought it was a fiction film when I started to watch your film. And then I was like, wait, what is happening? So why choose to go the documentary route for this film specifically? And tell us a bit about your creating experience.
Well, actually, this film is fiction, because I just...
why do I feel like it's a documentary also?
Because I was trying to experiment with this idea of I think we live in a world where truth and fact are not necessarily very clear these days. And that's, we've seen the dark side of that with fake news and Trump and all those people. But then I was wondering whether it's possible to create narratives that feel like documentary but are fiction, as a kind of way of trying to mirror what's actually happening. And it's interesting to hear Nick talking about this idea of cultures fading and kind of being pushed to the side. And I guess you learn a lot about a society by the decisions about who they push to the side, who are made misfits, who are made outsiders. So I was really interested in this idea of queerness once again. I think all my life I've always been looked at as queer, even not even just the sexual dimension of queerness, but just that whole thing of what do you think, and who are you, and what are you interested in? I think ever since I was in high school, I was called a devil worshipper. And so I remember that kind of parallel fear that people have when they call you a devil worshipper in high school. But then also it's they want you to stop. So there's a weird dance there. It was very useful for me because Form 2s were afraid of me. After that, they were like, okay, this nigga is he's gonna curse us or something. So I got out of a lot of ridiculous situations. But then that thing stuck with me, this idea of this dual fear, but also control. So this story was a lot queerer when we were writing it, but then KFCB, when they see a script from the nest, they really read it word for word. So we literally got notes on the script, page per page, remove this word, you can't say this. And I guess that's, a lot of filmmakers tell me that they're surprised to hear that, because KFCB doesn't care. You get your license and you can shoot. But us guys get page by page notes, which is kind of scary, because this is there's nowhere in life where you're told as a filmmaker that you can write a script and then the government has an opinion on that script and they tell you to take out words, take out stories, take out themes. So that was really shocking for me because with Stories of Our Lives, we didn't have that procedure. With this one, we were kind of trying to be legit, and then we get script notes from KFCB. So even going into the shoot, the story was already paralyzed in some ways because they had said, you can't use this word. So even just going onto the set, you're already like, okay, how do we circumvent this thing? Is it possible to still kind of capture queerness without saying the word queerness? And I guess the film kind of dances into that kind of sensual area where it's like, is this what's going on here? Is this queer? Is this gay? Whatever. But also on set, a lot of the cast were afraid. Not the main cast. The main cast were fine, but like all the supporting characters, a lot of them were like, they'd be like, we can't do this. This feels scary. And that was quite interesting for me because it felt like then the line between fiction and documentary was being kind of merged, because literally I could not tell the story in the way that I wanted to. And the characters were not able to act out the scenarios because all the supporting characters were literally pulling out, just like in the story. So yeah, this film really kicked my ass because I learned that for all your ambition and intention as a storyteller, that film really needs a lot more people to buy in to your story, a lot more people to support your storytelling in order for that to happen. Yeah, so how do I feel about this kind of documentary fiction line? I think even Stories of Our Lives, people think it's a documentary and we're like, no, it's based on real life, but it's fiction. And with this one, people are like, it's a documentary. And I'm like, no, it's not, but it could be, because you read a lot of reports about all these cultural practices actually disappearing, and Kenya's increasingly examination like Christianity, which is like, these are the things that you have to do to be a Christian. These are the people you have to be against. I think this country is increasingly framed by a religion that is clear about what it is not for than what it is for. And I guess that's what the characters go through in the film.
Nice, thanks. So from like very heavy stuff to really light, Brian, I'm just so curious about your film, and I want to know whose mother is that, because I'm like, for anyone who knows you knows how much you love comedy, and so I'm just interested in why for you it's important to keep going back to that genre. Why do you like to tell stories in the comedy space? And then tell us a little bit about your story and like, ilikuwa story yako.
So Morning After is actually based on a true story. I wouldn't say who, because he's a very close friend of Jim's. Someone once told me that if you can make
now you have to say it.
Right? We are all here like, who are Jim's close friends?
Until he gives me,
let's start ticking out who your friends are, Jim.
Until he gives me permission, I said I shall not share his name. We shall call him Joe for the purpose of this conversation. Yes, someone once said that laughter is an involuntary action. If you can make people laugh, you have made them feel something that they were not intending to feel. And I feel comedy is a really wonderful platform to sort of bring out themes that people are not comfortable to talk about, or talk about things that people wouldn't normally or openly talk about. But if you can make them sort of laugh at themselves, then the conversation becomes a lot easier. And I think, especially if I was to do a really heavy story, it would still be comedy, because if you can engage that audience in that level, then you have their attention, you have made them care. And it's not an easy route, but it's a very effective route in my experience. And the more people laugh, the more they engage with the content, the better their reaction to whatever it is that you're trying to say is. So Morning After is a true story, word for word. I literally did not change anything. We were on a train somewhere in Europe with Jim's friend, I shall not mention who. It was a long train ride, and we were kind of talking about our youth and sort of dating in our youth, and some of the stupid things we used to do when we were younger. And he tells us the story about the last time he brought someone over to the mother's place. And he gives us this story, blow by blow. Like they came in at night, like this was the usual situation. Like they sneak in, they do the deeds the whole night, and then at 4 a.m., because the mom used to wake up at 5 a.m. for morning dedication. She was very religious. At 4 a.m., this person has to leave the house immediately, go, like so that the mother doesn't sort of know what is happening. But the mom knew, like she knew these things have been happening, but she was sort of trying to find a way to deal with the situation that would not alienate her son to her, because she's a single mom. It was just the two of them. So she wanted to teach him a lesson, not the way he expected it to come across, because she was very strict. She was very Christian. So it would have been slippers in Atoleo, and then she beat the hell out of you, call the Wamamas and the Chama, come pray for my son. The devil has entered his mind. He was like, no. She tried to approach it in a very tactful, very different perspective. I remember when he told me the story, I told him, I'm going to make a short film out of this story. And I was like, and then when I sent him the script, he was like, dude, you are serious? I'm like, yes. But when we were in pre-production for the story, one of my friends, he's called Bramwell, read the script, and then he asked a very weird question at the time. He asked me, I wonder what was going through the mom's mind this whole time when this Joe was bringing people over to the house. And I was like, that's actually very interesting. And I realized my initial draft was more on the plot and not the heart of the script. So I decided to call Jim's friend. We had like a 2-hour phone call on now the nitty-gritties and the backstory of what happened. And then I realized that it was much deeper than what I had thought. And he even gave me permission to talk to the mom. So I had a phone call with the mother. There's something the mom said that stuck with me, even when we were making the film. She said, I knew how to be a mother, but I didn't know how to be a father. She felt like she knew, she gave Jim's friend all the love and upbringing that a mother could, but she could not be the father that he needed. So she needed to do something different. She needed to channel a different energy so that he could get that fatherly love, quote unquote, and understand the repercussions of what he was doing, not from a mother's standpoint, but from both parents. Because that's the thing that she felt was missing in his life. And she felt like he was acting out because there was no male figure in his life. And this was how he was sort of growing up to be a man. And that really changed the perspective of how I approached the short film. And yeah, Morning After was made.
I mean, well done. I think it's such a clever film. And I'm going to circle back to this conversation about like genre and how genre is used just to communicate meaning in narrative. But I'd like to invite Irungu to tell us about his film, Leaving Isiolo. First, I really like the title. And I think I'm just so curious as to how you arrived at this narrative. I was just like, first, even how it starts, I'm like, where are these people? Are they actors? Are they just real life people you found and decided to make actors for your film?
Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody. Sorry for being so late. First of all, big shout out to everybody at Nairobi Film Fest for making this happen. And for having us all here, because people think people make a lot of money making film festivals, but it's a lot of work. So big up to Sheba, Bithi, and the rest of the team. Hi, Jimmy, and everybody else that I know here. You guys are awesome. I love your film, Jimmy. I have watched half of them. Leaving Isiolo, to answer your question, Carol, is when was part of a bigger idea that I pitched to a few people in LA and years ago in 2019 before COVID. And I could see, I pitched it to one studio guy who gave me an hour, and I could see that it'd be so much better if I made a sizzle reel or a short film to just give him a texture of what the script was talking about. So we shot it last year. I have to give a huge shout out to Louis, my producer in Brooklyn, Joanne Poggio, the most incredible DP, and Wanzilu Maingi, because there's no little short film without those three people. And last year we shot it in Nairobi and Isiolo. The credible Chinese gentlemen are not actors. They all work in the industry. The lead actor, Troy, owns 2 businesses, and he was super affected by COVID. And I just went around. I went to Yaya. I went to malls passing out flyers that I got made in Chinese by this incredible choreographer in New York City, and asking for, hey, you want to be in a short film with a Kenyan guy? I turned up my American accent so they did not think I was Kenyan. And but yeah, that's how it got made. And we shot it on 2 days in February 1st and 2nd. And then the 3rd day we went to Isiolo to shoot exterior stuff. They are very incredible actors. And yeah, but that's to answer your question about the incredible Chinese guys.
But also, why this narrative specifically? Because I was actually trying to think back to the last time I saw like a black face and a white face in a Kenyan scene, you know, like on screen, right? So it's also like that dynamic of, I don't know if this is something we see often. So because I lived in SA for so long, I'm like, yeah. Interracial relationships on screen aren't like a big deal. But for me, that's why it was just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So why that choice?
You know, that's a great question, Carol. You know, I live in Stato. I left when I was 16 to go to States, and I come back every year since 2010. And I really consider myself an immigrant in the US. So I'm really fascinated by why people move to different places, the spaces they inhabit, why people move, like why immigrants happen. So I really consider myself an immigrant. So when I come back to Kenya and I see Somali Kenyans, Somalis that just came the other day, Somalis that came 5 years ago, people from Uganda, I'm really fascinated by that narrative. So I was like, oh my God, I could see a progression. I have so many Chinese American friends in the US, so many Chinese friends. I was like, oh, there's incredible Chinese community here. There's even like a Chinatown. So that's how it came about. I was going up Thika Road with my famo to Shags, to upcountry, and the Thika Highway was being built by so many Chinese people. And my 5-year-old cousin was playing this terrible game. I was like, no, we can't play Spot the Chinaman, because that's wrong. There's so many wrong things with that sentence, with that statement. But I was like, oh my God, but this is like 2012. And then in that, I just started imagining, and my girlfriend at the time gave me a deadline. She said, write this thing that you keep thinking about. You have 30 days. And I wrote it, and I was like, we can't shoot the feature, but I can make a little proof of concept. So essentially the characters so I went to Isiolo in 2018 to do some research for a week, and just to see if what I wrote on the page actually existed. And it was a really beautiful moment to actually go to a place where you imagined, and, you know, for years writing and actually shoot. So yeah, and then the casting process was the most difficult. We got Audi. Roa is the most incredible actress. She's in so many shorts. She's so cool. I love her. Yeah, it was a difficult but fun shoot.
Actually, that's a really nice segue into my next question, because all the films in this category have an amazing cast. I was just like, who's that? Who's that? You know, like faces that we hadn't seen before. And so I'm just curious, and literally anybody can answer this question. How do you feel about where we are at from a casting point of view in Kenya? Because for a very long time, we relied on Phoenix players and people who are kind of like in the theater space, but it seems like that's kind of changed. So do you feel like we are headed in the right direction? What was your experience in casting and picking out the people you used for your film?
Can I talk about Sungura? So Ivy and I, we wanted a woman with a disability to play the lead. We didn't want someone to pretend to be disabled. So what we did, we put out a casting call, but we didn't get, we put out a casting call describing the character and saying that she's a wheelchair user. But then I think only one person with a disability actually emailed us to say that they would like to audition. So I had to go back to the community of women that we are speaking to, and now they sent us, okay, this young woman could work, this young woman could work. And we got Florence Jeriwambui, who is just so super talented, although she played basketball for our Paralympic team, but she's never acted before. And I asked, okay, then she said that she did see the poster and she asked why. And then I asked, then why did so few women who have a disability, send in their audition tapes? And she said, well, because we just assumed it wasn't for us. We just assumed that you just wanted someone to pretend. So, so that's the thing. And I think, like, this journey just showed us, like, this, like thinking about Florence or even other films, like she doesn't have to act in something that has to do with disability, so we are like exclusive in that way. We are now like even on a journey where we're trying to do the audio visual for the film so that we can do community screenings for PWD communities, and just realizing like it's so difficult because we've never done it, and because we never thought that we had to as well. So and for the previous film, so Ivy is like my wife in film, so Millet as well. We just got random. We also got like a friend of mine, her daughter played, was the actor. She had also not acted as well. And I feel like for us, like there's this willingness where as long as the person can authentically portray the person, I'm seeing that in like a lot of films where people just want someone who can really embody the character. And like for Florence, this was also part of her lived experience. She's like, that story, I know it. I know people saying, I got my daughter because something bad happened to me. It can't be because of desire and love and things like that. So I think like there's that opening of people willing to work with people, even if it's for the first time. And of course, there's that fear behind it that, oh, maybe they will not deliver a performance the way someone who, this is their daily job will. But then you find like it's just like such a magical experience when you're working with them. But also there's also I get also maybe the complaint in other corners that is always the same people, because Audi is in my film as well, but it's also the quality of Audi. Audi can be anything. I've seen her in a film where she's a little tomboy who is a boxer, and then she came from that, and then she was Bridezilla. So it's also, there are just some people who I don't know what they are made of as well, and she's one of those people. Yeah.
That's amazing. Brian, yeah?
Let me advocate for my theater people. I think, so I did a project recently, a project Lydia wrote, #NDA. And I think it was one of the most amazing projects I've ever done, because it had the most amazing pool of talent that I've ever worked with. I think we're at a point where we have so much talent, so many amazing people that we are kind of spoiled for choice now. Okay, depending on your budget, we're kind of spoiled for choice. And a lot of it stems from a very strong theater background. I think our theater culture molded a lot of disciplined, a lot of talented, a lot of people who really push the envelope in terms of performances, like Audi. We really thank the theater community for sort of creating this pool of talent, because there's a very huge difference between someone who has theater experience and someone who's only done TV. And you can also feel it when you're working with these actors on set. And in as much as we don't have that large of a film or TV industry in Kenya, our theater industry has really molded very talented, not only cast members, but also crew members, from production designers to costume designers and things like that. So yes, I in as much as Phoenix is no longer there, there is a breed that has come from the theater space that has really energized the film space in terms of casting.
Great. Jim, I know you guys do a lot of work in the casting department. Like, where do you guys find people?
I think we mix it up. Definitely, Brian is right that the theater actors come to set with a kind of a toolkit, right? They're ready. They're like, they're willing to experiment. They're willing to play. But I think my favorite actors are the ones who are. And you know the thing about Kenyan actors is that, like, what, 90% of them are self-taught. Where do you go to learn acting in this country, right? And so in a sense, I really hate that the film industry kind of overemphasizes the directors, because I'm like, yo, the directors, we have like YouTube, we have all these places where we can learn how to, put our stories together. And maybe we are just those kind of people who want to be, in people's face like that. But acting is like this thing that you do on your own. It's like who's gonna guide you? And so I think every actor in this country who ever goes on set or on a play anywhere, that's a magical Kenyan. Because like 844, can you imagine what 844 does to the imagination? Like, can you imagine going through 14 years of 844 and you still come out of that wanting to be an actor, right? So I think there's something so special and magical about that. I really love actors. I have been worrying recently about how because of that kind of self-taught thing, the problem with being self-taught is that you only learn what you need, but you don't learn everything that's actually useful to you as a technical person. And so I've been worrying a lot about aftercare for actors, because like they come out of these sets, and if you look at the films that we're doing here, many of the films we're doing here have had such heavy themes, and we need actors to go into a very dark place to kind of give us those performances. But then even us as directors, we're not taught how to help actors to exit that. And a lot of people just say that's the actor's work. But then a lot of actors are walking around in our streets with a lot of trauma that has been repeatedly brought to the surface by directors who are like, oh, that one cries easy. I hear a lot of people saying, well, if you want emotions, go ahead and cast me. But like, we never really investigate what is that actors okay? Like, and are these films re-traumatizing them by taking them to that place over and over again? So yeah, I have met actors who went through a film and have never left character years later because they were not guided out of that character. And then people start typecasting them into that role because they're like, oh, you're a really good gangster. But I'm like, but what are you doing to that person? So I don't know where you begin to kind of unpack that stuff. I don't know where you get technical skills to help actors release characters. But yeah, I do worry about the self-taught nature of the acting.
Yeah, it's actually a similar conversation with having intimacy coordinators on set, right? Because like, who's protecting the cast? And Irungu, my question to you is, as a director, when you're coming into that space, because you're definitely about the performance, but you're also all about the story. So how are you looking to prep them? And also, because you've lived in the States, I mean, there's like method acting, and I'm like, we're not in that space in Kenya, right? So it's just like, what you're expecting, but literally here is someone you've now turned into, like, you're this acting lecturer who has to make them give you what you need, like, so how would you say as a director you need to approach managing like actors in a Kenyan space? Because also Kenya, there's TV, there's theater, they've come from so many other different voices, right?
Yeah. Jimmy, that's a great point of going off of protecting actors, by the way, Carol and Jimmy, because that is huge that they have intimacy coordinators, because I do a lot of theater, I've done TV and film, and it's only now that space of how are you leaving actors, and even Brian said this, how, a lot of theater actors, we put ourselves through a lot of craziness, a lot of things to bring a lot of things to life. So I guess I approached Living Osiolo because it's really a story about a Kenyan businesswoman who works for a crime lord and a Chinese construction worker who just fall in love. You catch them at this point in their life. So I really was trusting Audi to because I was like, Audi, listen, this guy's never acted in his life. So the technique was just be natural. You're having a conversation outside Twigs. I've just dated myself outside a coffee shop. You're just talking, right? These guys haven't acted. So the more natural we keep it, the better it is for the camera, the more real it is. But there is a scene where I did ask the crew to leave last August so that just the DP can capture her crying, which we did in August during COVID, but also during here in East Ngara, where we shot on Sunday, February 3rd last year. There was a lot of people in the room when she was doing some emotional stuff. And my producer from Brooklyn, Louis, was like, yeah, Iroga, let's get all these people out. And then we discussed after, we're like, yeah, Audi, whatever you need, like, let's, bring them down. I went to acting school in New Jersey, and we did Meisner technique. So Meisner technique is very emotional. It's like, method, but then it's grounded in more imagination. But after you do the exercise, you hug the whole class and you shake it off for 5 minutes. Whatever dark place you went to, like Jimmy said, because it can get dark, but you have to flush it. You have to let it go. Because then the next day, if you're playing, fences or whatever you're playing in Stanley Kowalski in a streetcar, you need to get crazy again. You can't walk around with this weight. So my only other thing with casting was I had a very tough time casting, and I wished there was, and I need to talk to you guys here, I wish there was a casting office, because for the female lead, for Audi's character, we had an open call and then callbacks. So like hundreds of people came. I gave my Kenya number. I'll never give my Kenya number again. I had people still calling me 3 months after, hundreds of people. And that was great. But then I wish there was a centralized casting, which of course comes down to, does the market dictates it. Maybe the market, but I feel there's so much stuff being shot here. Showmax, I don't know how many shows on TV compared to when I was growing up, that I feel there just needs to be a central office. Because for the Chinese guy, I went to Suranzuri Casting, which is for models, I believe. Maybe somebody could help me. And this wonderful lady got me in contact with some Chinese guy who she worked with. And then for the rest of the Chinese guys, I went to Confucius Institute. For James and for Mocha, I went to the Nairobi Confucius Institute, and they were so helpful. It was a long journey, but it was helpful. So it was kind of like a mishmash of open call and yeah.
I think also that's a very interesting way for us to have a conversation about the film environment currently in Kenya. I think much like Irungu, and I won't mention the other people in the room and when we were born, some of us have lived through various seasons of the film industry. So this is very much a better version than before. But my question is to Ivy. What are some of the things that you think are definitely working and the places that we still need some work to allow for a thriving film industry in Kenya? Ivy, have you found your unmute button?
Christine, maybe you can give us a hand with unmuting.
It's refusing.
Christine, do you think you can unmute?
Can you unmute Ivy?
As Ivy is trying to unmute, I'd like to full counter. What do we define as an industry? Because I feel we talk about this term industry, but I don't think we have a definition for this term. Like, is just making films every year, draining our bank accounts, mortgaging our houses, selling our cars, and probably selling some kidneys to some Brazilian immigrants. is that the industry, or what is the definition of industry? Because I feel we have not defined what we want, what this term is for us, and how that term can build whatever it is that we want.
That's such a good question, actually. What does, because people like to compare East Africa and West Africa and South Africa, like as if we're all the same. Like, hey, Kenya, where are you guys? What are you doing? So I think that's a really important question in terms of like, what defines an industry for us. I'm gonna go to Jim for that one, because Jim, I feel like this might be a conversation that you've had in very many rooms across the world of like, what are the things that we require, especially when a lot of the money to make film isn't coming from us.
Well, some people would argue that I feel if people are mortgaging their houses to make film, that is a film industry, because like in every country in this world, there are filmmakers selling something they shouldn't be selling in order to make a film. But I feel like there was a time when people could have argued that Kenya doesn't have a film industry. I don't think that's true anymore. I feel like if maybe I'm one of those people who believes that we are two or more gathered in the name of film, that's an industry. But like, this is like, I mean, look at this conversation. There are so many filmmakers here and all the attendant networks that make our work possible. So there's definitely an industry. There's definitely people making money out of this. There's definitely people putting money into it. And as far as I'm concerned, that is an industry. With regard to whether our industry is like the others, I think there are some particular dynamics in Kenya that are interesting in terms of like how Kenyans and their relationship to works made in Kenya is a thing that no one has been able to unpack or understand. We are surrounded by countries that have much more direct relationships between culture and audiences. Like in Tanzania, if they love you, they love you. You get your money, you become a celeb. But here, people can love you and it will not matter financially. You still have to mortgage, your car. So I think it's something that needs to be kind of understood a little bit more. And I suspect that it's probably because of our history. We live in a country where our tastes have been political, they have been monitored, they have been controlled, because Kenyans are the kind of people who, if you give them too much freedom, they actually take that freedom and they start to innovate, they start to make things, they start to ask questions. And so the only way that you push back on Kenyans is to have people like KFCB, which for me is more like an industry demotivator than motivator. And I don't know what does it mean as filmmakers for a state agency to be so obviously against the work that we do. And that if your narrative is in any way left of the mainstream, you'll get script notes from people who've never made films, who don't know how to make films. Like, why should I be getting script notes from some kid in KFCB who was told, ukiona jina, if you see anything related to Shoga, just cross it out, call that filmmaker, tell them, no. If it's a nest, soma kabisa. I'm like, but who are you? I've never even met you. Like, it was a phone call, right? So who is this person? Who has the right to? Anyway, let me not go down that route. Yes, we do have an industry. It's growing in the ways that Kenya is representative of the best kind of East Africanness, which is like super productive and super innovative and super young and interesting. Yeah, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Ivy, now that I can see your mic is working. Could you, give us your thoughts on like the challenges of this environment?
I mean, I guess let's start with the good things, that there's so many creatives now coming out. So many young people are making films now. Now it's not I feel like the industry now is not being run by the few industry, stakeholders. And now people are having voices. They kina nene tumeanza to come through. Maybe we're gonna be having a say at KFC and stuff. But I'm happy about that. That makes me excited that we are going the right direction. But obviously what's not working, yes, we do have stories that are beautiful that we want to tell, that we want to make in a high quality standard, because we are also competing with the outside world. but we're just having a hard time fundraising for our films. Getting funds is a whole other animal that we have to tackle, that I'm struggling with at the moment, you know. I do have like 2 other films that I want to make, and yeah, and I know probably it's only, I mean, now KFC is giving out money for films, and it's a good thing. That's a good starting point, you know. I still have an opinion about who is getting the money. I really would, I can't wait to see the films that have been funded, you know. This is being recorded, so I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be politically correct. You know what I mean? But
yeah, you're gonna need them later.
Ooh, yeah, juice. But we need other people. I would love to see private investors coming on board, just wanting to promote the artists and the film industry now, you know. You know, because we can't keep depending on the outside world. We are minority as well. We are bottom of the barrel. I know Africa, we are the everyone is looking at us like, oh, what's coming out from here? You know, what are people doing here? But it also gets overwhelming thinking you have to keep up with their standards. We have to make films that adhere to their standard, not just standards really, but like the stories that they want to hear or to be told, you know. And I guess that's my biggest challenge. KFCB, as Jim is saying, like, actually, funny story, we were also, when we sent in our script to get the film license, someone called me and they were like, hi, are you the producer of Sungura? I'm like, yes. We have read your script, but is this really, why are you telling this story? I was shocked. First of all, I had KFCB. I'm just like, this is it. We are at Lydia. Yeah, all the the months of blood, sweat, and tears are coming to an end. And yeah, so the guy was just trying to tell me, does the girl need to get the vibrator at the end of the story? You know, why does it have to involve vibrators? Can't you tell a story about something else? I just had to, you know, try to convince him and try to make it in the line. We are trying to promote a film about person's disability. It has nothing to do with sexuality. But then again, to be honest, we wanted it to be entertaining. We wanted it to be quirky. We wanted it to be, you know, all the nice sensual things. But I had to make it sound like it is just about the person with the disability. And yeah, just so now I'm like, am I in their radar as well? It's like, are they gonna, especially after Jim said they're giving you notes for the script, because they did write to our film license, our application, the license itself. Make sure you take it to be classified. Make sure you submit this film to be classified. So, I mean, we're given an 18 plus, which is great. You know, at least people can still get to watch it. But yeah, that really breaks my heart. You know, yeah. Now I'm even worried. Jim umenishtua. We go to.
I'm like, is there a list? So there's like a list of just
the red list.
Sungura was rated 18 plus.
Imagine, we were.
Wow.
It's so interesting just hearing everyone talk about their personal stories, because my next question is to Nick, who I hope, did you just lose Nick? Nick, oh, there you are. Nick, do you feel like as a filmmaker, there's this responsibility to be like an activist behind the scenes? Because it's like, you're not just telling your story, you're also just out here fighting for space to be heard. Does it feel like that?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, of course, depending with, of course, the topic you're doing in a film or anything, there's always a reason you're doing that topic. Besides, you know, like my example would be, I'm a doc filmmaker, and yeah, like my latest 2 projects will be, say, Baraza and the other one, Street Dreams, though it's still one and the same thing, have the same people. But ideally, by the time you're doing a specific story, or you know, you want to tell this story, you are coming also from a point of not necessarily an extreme activism, but it comes from a point where you're not just telling the story for the sake of, I can do it and this is the story of these people. it also comes from a point of you want change or you want kind of change, whether it's a positive change or it's an institutional change or any kind of change. So yeah, it definitely feels that, and it's something you carry on knowingly that I'm doing this because also, I mean, this kind of films, every time I do this kind of films or I have an idea of this kind of films that I'm doing, is I always ask myself, so what's the main point after filming it? You know, like for me, you know, for this would be this specific Dogorizer, and the other one, which is ideally the same kind of the same themes, is, you know, how does the society perceive arts in a street level? You know, they are street dancers, they are street acrobatic people. You know, these are people whereby, for example, like the dancers outside Tribeca and were dancing. I mean, school tell you, probably even one of us find yourself in a situation when you walk there, you see this guy coming towards you. The first thing you do is just clench your bag or your pocket, you know, like this guy might mug me as the first thing. But ideally, I mean, this guy ideally is literally showing up for work at 6 p.m. to dance the whole night, the same way you showed up to work 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. So for me, it came from a point of I just want to, among other many reasons, is to highlight how art is perceived in our society on a street level. You know, I mean, we've watched a lot of documentaries in New York subways where you normally see this guy, how they dance inside the metros and the trains and everything. You know, they also have those struggles, and that's why most documentaries, they end up, you know, telling that story. So it's always, once you have the reason, for me especially, the reason dictates, you know, it brings the form of some activism, as much as it might not be the main thing in the film, but there's always that, because for me, I'll be satisfied when finally I see, you know, the society or the police these people dancing outside the streets, or in a situation whereby, say for example, for Dogorizer will be in a situation whereby, you know, he's able to speak now face to face or one on one with his dad with his stepdad about, okay, I might not be I may not be your real son, but you know, I'm still part of your family. So there's always an aspect of activism, but whether it happens or not, you know, as long as you put it there and everyone sees you're trying to send a specific message. And ideally, your stories, specifically my stories, they are always, as much as I'm using this specific subject or subjects, they always a representation of a whole community outside there. So yeah, definitely for me, is always that.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Nick. So this has been such a fantastic conversation. I could really go on for an hour. But I just have one last question for all of you. Look at Brian giving me an side eye for like an hour, CK. So my last question to all of you is, and I'll pick Lydia first because I know she has to dash off. One of the reasons I'm really passionate about the 48-hour film project is just because of the role that I think short film has in the career of a filmmaker. So I'm very curious to know how you feel about short films. I think we're in a very unique position in Kenya to have the Nairobi Film Festival screening so many films from like across the continent as well. And so Lydia, what do you think for you is the role of short film in the film industry and in a film career?
I know like we have this thing where people are doing the short then to make a feature, but there's this the writer once said like it's not like it's the short story is not like a pathway to the novel. Like those are good stories on their own. So I'm very obsessed with short films. I watch Short of the Week and the ones that are on the Vimeo. What is that thing called? Anyway, the ones that Vimeo really promotes a lot. Yeah, because I feel like they're a masterpiece on their own. But I think the importance is, one, they are makeable. So make like both narrative and documentary films. I try to make a feature documentary, and I accepted that I'll never finish it in this lifetime. But the documentary ended and it had a life and it did things. So that's the thing. Like it's something that someone can make. Even if you're looking for funding, it's not going to be the journey of 7 years. And now they are 50 and now they are stepping on set to make the thing. And then also accessible as well. I know like now for most of us, they're not accessible because we're doing festivals. But even after that festival run, maybe for some of us, it would be on Short of the Week, it would be on Vimeo, it would be something that we can see. Where like for this continent, there are a lot of films that I have heard about, amazing films. I don't know where to watch them. I have accepted that unless one day I am at the festival where it happens to be playing, will I be able to see that film? But for the shorts, we're able to access them. And then we're like in this place where NBO has space for short films. Shorts is just for short films. So like there's more, and I think like it's easier to organize around that than if this was the festivals for just the feature films, or this was just about watching one feature film. So people can actually organize and people can see a variety of films. So it's important. And of course, career-wise, if your funding application always depends on the last thing that you did. So if you have a number of films that you can say, okay, this is part of my profile, whether for short or whether it's a feature film that you're making, you are more likely to be able to get that grant or that support as well.
Great. Ivy?
I mean, I think Lydia has said much of it, but I really think shorts are you want to put you're a first time filmmaker and you want to make something quick. It can be quick is relative as well, but fast enough for you to be able to make something else as well, for you to be able to make your feature. I still believe if you want to make a feature and you have never done it before, start with a short, understand how it works, understand the life of a film before you get to do like a feature, because that's a whole animal by itself to just do. And I do believe you can just be a filmmaker by making short films. There are amazing short films that have been credited, like accredited films, and the filmmakers are known for just that. I really wish when Jiro was here to just speak about her. Like I love her. I met her at the opening night, and I think she does fantastic jobs with short films that I really admire. But I generally think short films do have a life of their own, are able to get filmmakers to a step further than starting off from nothing, So yeah.
Thank you. Brian, as someone who made a short film that ended up at the Cannes Film Festival, would you like to tell us what you think the role of short films is in just the growth of your film career?
Yes, the role of a short film is to depress you as a filmmaker. Anyway, I'd like to answer this question in 2 parts. The first part as an audience member. I think there is a market for short films, in as much as people keep saying short films don't make money. There isn't a market for short films. I'd give you an example. The many times that I've just logged on to Netflix to watch Love, Death and Robots for the 1,000th times, I can't even mention. There are times you don't want to watch a series, you don't want to watch a feature film, you just want something short, punchy, edgy, just something short and entertaining. You might have a long day, it has been one of those weeks, and you just want, I don't know, like that 10-minute thing that will just make you smile and then you go to sleep. So as an audience member, I think there is a market for short form content. I mean, social media has more or less proven that people really crave short, entertaining, fun things that they can just watch on the fly, feel happy, feel sad, feel depressed, feel energized, and move on. So I'm, and as much as we like to look at short films as gateways to something greater, I think the art form in itself has its own audiences, and it can stand on its own. People don't want to watch features all the time. People don't want to watch The Witcher or Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad every time. People don't have time. We're working towards a 24-hour economy, and Corona messed us economically. So we want something short, punchy, edgy, nice. Watch it, get your emotions, and check out. So I honestly believe there's a market for short films. Answering it as a filmmaker, coming from a country where we do not have direct film funding from the government, the lowest hanging fruit would be a short film. Not for as a stepping stone, not as a career builder, but as a form of expression. Because
Brian, have we lost Brian? Brian? Oh gosh, okay. He is frozen, but
I like how he's frozen though.
Good, yeah. The perfect frame. I'm gonna go to Nick next. Nick, what are your thoughts on short films?
For me, I would say, just as Brand said, like the first point, it's sometimes you just want to watch something short, and something, you literally know, before I go to bed, I want to watch some 20 minutes death and that's it. There's that aspect. But speaking for myself, I would say, especially being a documentary filmmaker, for me, and it's literally how it's been happening with me, I've been doing shorts that have, first of all, I've been doing shorts for the longest, and a lot of short docs, which ideally I've been doing them just because I had limited resources doing them compared just to doing them as a feature. And also some of the stories that I've done as shorts, ideally are some of the stories that I've done as shorts are stories whereby if I was to do a feature, will definitely take time. There are those long form kind of stories. I did my first feature film this year, a feature documentary film, and it came as a result of doing 2 shorts from the same subjects. So, like, for example, I did that helped me do this, and that helped me get funding to do the feature. So for me, shorts have been a way so far, something that has helped me get funding to continue doing whole feature story that I did. I did, for example, in 2017, I did a 5 minutes version of The Dancers at that point, and I did it, edited and put it online, and I didn't know 2 weeks or 2 months or 3 months later how much it had, everyone in the whole world had ideally watched it, until I received a phone call 4 months later after that, are you still in contact with the boys? Are they your friends and stuff like that? And after that contact, the next message was, I would love to be part of this. Now there's someone who's funding telling me, I want to be part of this program if you have the access to these boys. So with that, it has helped me now do the bigger story which I wanted to do. But at that point, with the situations and the circumstances, I didn't either have enough resources or enough time to do it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Jim?
Shorts. Unlike Brian, who is able to split into audience and filmmaker perspectives, for me, who has time to watch features these days? I'm just like, it's like an hour and a half, need to get our bag. So I think my perspective has always been that not only shorts, a story is a story. Doesn't matter how long the story is, as long as you tell it well, right? And even if you look at the shorts that are in this collection, it's such an interesting portrait of what Kenya is right now, from the relationships we have with Chinese to how we treat disabled people. There's so much that you can learn about what Kenya is right now from watching these shorts. And if we insisted that all these shorts have to be features, I think like we'd have 20% of them, you know, because like features are just a whole nightmare. So I just think that shorts are amazing because they allow filmmakers to serve Kenyans. Because for me, I'm super interested in how do we serve Kenyans? How do we dignify them with images of them? How do we tell their stories and make them feel like their feelings are valid, their dreams are valid, you know? And it's not the government that's going to do that. The government's just going to increase taxes because, you know, but us as artists, we're able to look at Kenyans and say, you guys are beautiful, you guys, your stories are valid, you guys are whole human beings. So, and I think shorts are just as effective at doing that as a whole feature. And then just looking at what technology is doing to us in terms of attention spans. I now see people like they're watching Game of Thrones, they're watching a series, but they're also on social media and they're also like, there's like a Zoom happening. Like people are doing this multitasking thing. I don't know if it's good for us as human beings, but it's definitely made us much more concise in terms of like understanding, this is the person I need to watch. This is what's happening to them. And in terms of empathy, I'm unsure a little bit because I'm like, are we really able to pay attention to one another? If even the stories of one another, we're not able to pay attention to a whole hour, I think. So I worry a little bit about what technology is doing to us, but I think it's cool that filmmakers are responding by making works that enter that small gap, that lunch break, that coffee break, that space between two Zoom meetings, and you tell a story, and I think that's pretty cool. So, and I guess in closing, it's just really cool to be amongst other filmmakers. I don't want to get to be there. It's really cool to see all you guys' work, and I really respect all of you guys so much, and it's been amazing to be here.
Thank you, Jim. Irungu?
Yes, this is a fucking amazing circle, Jimmy. This is an amazing circle, and bravo again. Thank you, Carol, for moderating. But this is, I love fierce people making stuff. A short. This is my first thing I've ever shot. I said I've always wanted to work in Kenya, and we shot this so unbelievably quickly. But to answer your question about shorts, I mean, look at Netflix. Netflix last year started putting on shorts onto their platform, and then, you know, Two Strangers goes to win, you know, the best Oscar for a short. You know, it's crazy because they found, just like you know, Jimmy and a few people were talking about, people just want a snack in between something epic. You come back and you want something tiny. I really love short films. I have always loved them. I go to sometimes I just go to film festivals and just watch the short sections, because I feel that they, just like somebody said, if we look at the plate of what is here right now with everybody that's made something, and I've only watched half, it's such an incredible mix, you know? It's such, I get to jump into a world about Tapia. I get jump into a world about sexual exploration through the disability angle. I get to, you know, it's so rich, and I can't wait to finish watching them before the link expires. But I think you can choose to do two things. You can make shorts to, you know, as a calling card for features, or you could just be like, I love to make shorts, which is great because there's totally an audience for it. You know, I think also releasing stuff online these days is really trumping film festivals, like big time, like sitting in a movie theater, you know. So I big respect to everybody who is here and wasn't here for this incredible roundtable. And yeah, I love shorts.
Thank you so much. Guys, that was really such an amazing conversation. And if this was a physical location, I'd be like, let's go get drinks now. However, it was wonderful to just talk about the industry with you guys. Thank you for encouraging us so much with your stories. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm just, as a producer, for me, it's such an amazing time to be a filmmaker. I shall be calling all of you. Because I'd love to work with you just because of the stuff you're doing. And to Shiba, Mbithi, and the whole NBO team, thank you so much for having me. This was incredible, and I hope to do it again next year. Okay, thanks guys. Over to you, Shiba.
Thanks, everybody. I'm so grateful for this conversation. It was really, really interesting. I feel like I learned a lot. I got provoked in a lot of interesting ways. Even as a film festival and as people who are trying to always resource the work that you guys do. as well as benefit from all the wonderful content you make as a festival. It was really, really insightful. And I'm super grateful for you sharing your story so candidly, and for the opportunity for us to share this even more widely with the wider audience and filmmaking community, both here and outside there. I just wanted to point out that the short films package, after it expires, the link expires today, it will all screen again during the screening extravaganza. It was not named by me. Now we love an extravaganza, so the film screening extravaganza, which is going to be happening on Saturday, and all the films actually across the whole festival will be available again for people to catch. Like Jim is on the floor. They'll all come back again during the extravaganza. And I think that's all that we have to say for now, but NBO Film Festival thanks you. We look forward to your films in the upcoming years. And please keep communications with us. Tell us what you're working on. Tell us what you're thinking about making. Tell us what you're actually making. And we'll try and help you in any way that we can. Asanteni, and till next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Carol. This was lovely.